Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. I want to bring to you a book review. Now, this book review is going to be of this book, which has been on my shelf for a long time. It's a book that I have referred to again and again and again. In fact, it's never really very far from my hand. Okay, it is a biography of Anthony Norris Groves. Let me just show you there we are. Anthony Norris Groves. Now, there may be many people that don't know who Anthony Norris Groves was. Now, let me read what it says here. It says, Saint and Pioneer, a combined study of a man of God and of the original principles and practices of the brethren, with applications to present conditions. Produced by G.H. Lang, and this is the second edition, and this one is in Paternoster Press, 1949. Okay, so what's it about, Stephen? Well, it's about Anthony Norris Groves. It's about his life. Let me read some of the contents for you. By the way, in the most fascinating sense, these men make me smile. Do you know who he dedicated the book to? He dedicated it to Enoch and to Noah and to Abraham. Okay? And to all the spiritual children who seek to walk with God. See, now that is so sweet, isn't it? So amazing. So what this is a summary of the life of Anthony Norris Groves. Anthony Norris Groves was an amazing early brethren leader. It talks about his life, talks about his dominant qualities, it talks about the channel of blessing. It also gives us a copy of one of the books that he wrote. He wrote a book called Christian Devotedness, which is rather sweet and rather quaint, but shows the incredible depth of spiritual devotion that Anthony Norris Groves had. It then goes on to talk about the Church of God. Okay, a long exercise on the Church of God. It talks about his work as an evangelist. It talks about his work as a pioneer. It talks about his work in Iraq and then in India. And then there's a number of interesting things towards the end of the book. We have a little essay produced by him on the subject of development, expediency, and tradition. Now, development, expediency, and tradition are the enemies of the gospel. Now, the enemies of the gospel. Development is the idea, oh, well, we don't live in apostolic times anymore, so we just need to do things in the modern way. That's called development. That's the argument for development. Expediency is, oh, well, if it works, we'll do what works. That's expediency. And tradition is, well, we've always done it that way, so I think we better just stick to it. Even if it's not in the Bible, we'll still stick to it because we've always done it that way. So development, expediency, and tradition. These are the great enemies of the gospel. He then talks about various other subjects, various topics, baptism. He talks about the example and teaching of Christ. He talks also about the coming of the Lord. He then also gives us 31 studies which he calls heavenly wisdom. He then talks about failure and its lessons. You see, Anthony Norris Groves was a man who was mightily moved upon by God to live by faith alone. He and George Muller were linked in terms of family. Also in here we have various notes about the division in the Brethren movement brought about by J.N. Darby. And we have the notes of certain meetings that took place, which sadly are not a great compliment to J.N. Darby. We also have an analysis of his life. He died at the age of 58. But at the age of 19 he commenced as a dentist in Plymouth. At the age of 21, he married his cousin, Mary Bethia Thompson, and moved to Exeter. At the age of 33, he suggested the principles of the Brethren that would meet at Dublin. He was the person who sort of originally conceived the idea. Is it possible, he said, to meet together just as Christians alone, recognizing no denominations, but just coming together and seeking the Lord to minister to each one of us as the Holy Spirit led? That is, in its essence, what Brethrenism is all about. It also talks about his resignation from his profession. Also was the age of 33. He left for Baghdad. Mrs. Groves died in Baghdad. He reached India and then returned to England and then to Germany, and then he married again, and then he went back to India, and then he came back to England, and then he went back again to India, and then he came back to England and died in Bristol at the age of 58. So this is the book. It is absolutely stunning. I don't think that in here I've got an actual copy of his picture. I don't think that I've got a copy of his photograph. Let's just see. No, I don't think so. There's not a photograph of him in here. I'll put up a photograph on the internet. This has been a sort of a study for me. He has been the man that I would emulate. He's been the man whose principles I mainly would study and follow. Anthony Norris Groves, the saint and the pioneer. Now, I don't know whether this book's available today. It'll probably be available second hand, but whether it's available first hand, I'm absolutely not sure. It ought to be reprinted. It is absolutely life-changing. Anyway, I wish you every blessing. It's great to talk to you and look forward to catching up with you next week. Bye for now.